Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the world of chess strategy. Today, we're exploring one of the most iconic chess openings the Ruy Lopez made famous in the legendary matches between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky during the 1972 World Championship. In this video, we'll break down the key moves of this classic opening, uncovering the strategic principles behind each move. Whether you're a beginner looking to enhance your skills or an experienced player seeking to refresh your tactics, understanding the opening can set the stage for a victorious game. So grab your chess pieces, and let's unravel the secrets of the Ruy Lopez together. Fischer opens with pawn e4, a strong and aggressive approach, aiming for quick piece development and center control. Spassky responds with e5, mirroring Fischer and solidifying control over the center. 2. Fischer develops his knight to f3, attacking the e5 pawn and supporting further control of the center. Spassky plays nc6, defending the e5 pawn and developing his own knight. 3. Fischer plays the Ruy Lopez with bb5, pinning the knight on c6 to the king. Spassky responds with a6, challenging the bishop and gaining tempo. 4. Fischer retreats his bishop to a4, keeping the pin on the knight and maintaining pressure. Spassky develops his knight to f6, attacking the e4 pawn and preparing to castle. 5. Fischer castles kingside, ensuring the safety of his king and connecting his rooks. Spassky plays b7, developing a piece and preparing to castle. 6. Fischer plays 1 rupee, reinforcing the e4 pawn and preparing for a potential d4 push. Spassky responds with b5, gaining space on the queen side and forcing the bishop to retreat. 7. Fischer retreats the bishop to b3, keeping it active and positioned for future play. Spassky plays d6, solidifying the center and opening lines for the dark-squared bishop. 8. Fischer plays c3, preparing to support a d4 pawn push and gain control over the center. Spassky castles kingside, ensuring the king's safety and preparing to connect the rooks. Fischer plays 9h3, preventing any bg4 moves that could pin the knight on f3. Spassky plays 9nb8, a somewhat surprising retreat that aims to reroute his knight to more effective squares. 10. Fischer strikes in the center with d4, challenging Spassky's pawn on e5. Spassky develops the knight with nbd7, reinforcing his central pawn and preparing to challenge Fischer's center. 11. Fischer plays nbd2, developing his knight and supporting the center while potentially preparing to reroute it to f1 or c4. Spassky responds with bb7, putting more pressure on the center and increasing the activity of his light-squared bishop. 12. Fischer plays bc2, centralizing the bishop and preparing for the central pawn push d4. He aims for better coordination among his pieces. Spassky moves re8, further reinforcing the e5 pawn and preparing for potential central play. 13. Fischer plays b4, expanding on the queen side and preparing to undermine Spassky's pawn structure. Spassky retreats his bishop to f8, a defensive move to reposition and perhaps later support central or queenside advances. 14. Fischer continues his expansion with a4, aiming to undermine Spassky's b5 pawn and deepen his control on the queenside. Spassky plays nb6, repositioning the knight to a more active square, challenging control of the center. 15. Fischer plays a5, threatening the c6 knight and gaining more space on the queen side. Spassky responds with nbd7, optimizing his piece's reorganization to prepare for upcoming central maneuvers. 16. Fischer plays bb2, placing the bishop on a strong diagonal, targeting the center while offering support to future pawn advances. Spassky plays qb8, activating the queen and possibly preparing for b5 or other pawn pushes. 17. Fischer plays rb1, further controlling the b-file and looking to challenge Spassky's queenside structure. Spassky plays c5, a bold move that challenges Fischer's center and seeks to open lines for his pieces. 18. Fischer captures with b takes c5, gaining the b file but allowing Spassky to recapture with the pawn. This leads to an open position. Spassky plays d takes c5, accepting the material exchange and aiming to stabilize his central structure. 19. Fischer plays d takes e5, advancing his pawn and attacking the knight on e5. This aggressive move opens lines for his remaining pieces. Spassky plays n takes e5, accepting the knight sacrifice and seeking to maintain central control. 20. Fischer plays n takes e5, capturing with knight to relocate to a more active square. This also opens lines for his pieces. Spassky responds with q takes e5, trading queens but leaving Fischer with a stronger position and a more active b toward the endgame. 21. Fischer plays c4, gaining space on the queen side and challenging the position of the black queen. This also prepares for potential pawn expansions in the center. Spassky responds with qf4, putting pressure on the knight on e5 and keeping Fischer's pieces more passive. 22. Fischer exchanges with b takes f6, removing a key defender and further clarifying the position. Spassky captures with q takes f6, trading queens and simplifying the position. 23. Fischer plays c takes b5, creating a passed pawn on the b file and controlling the b7 square. This also supports the idea of advancing his pawns on the queen side. Spassky responds with red 8, activating the rook and applying pressure down the d file. 24. Fischer plays qc1, centralizing the queen and looking to influence the position further, especially towards the king side and central pawns. Spassky plays qc3, pinning the pawn on b5, strategically targeting Fischer's position. 25. Fischer plays nf3, repositioning the knight to strengthen control over key central squares and preparing for potential counterplay against black. Spassky grabs the pawn with q takes a5, returning material but opening up the position further. 26. Fischer plays bb3, retreating the bishop to a safer square while keeping pressure on the center and maintaining threats against black's position. Spassky responds with a takes b5, capturing the bishop. This opens up the board, which can be advantageous for Fischer, as it allows his remaining pieces to become more active and coordinate better against Spassky's king. 27. Fischer plays qf4, centralizing the queen and reinforcing control over critical squares. This move is crucial, as it supports his pieces effectively and prepares for tactical opportunities against Spassky's setup. Spassky responds with rd7, aiming to connect his rooks and reinforce central control. This move also prepares for potential counterplay along the d-file and ensures that his pieces are organized. 28. Fischer moves ne5, centralizing the knight and targeting weaknesses in black's position, particularly the c6 and f7 squares. This knight on e5 is strong and can exert tremendous pressure on Spassky if not addressed. Spassky plays qc7, repositioning the queen to provide support and keep an eye on potential threats. This move helps fortify the c6 pawn and aligns the queen with the rook on the d-file, enhancing coordination. 29. Fischer plays rbd1, bringing the rook into play and increasing control over the central d-file while preparing for future tactical opportunities. This alignment of the rook and queen on the d-file enhances Fischer's grip over the center and aims for possible attacks against Spassky's king. In response, Spassky plays re7, centralizing the other rook to prepare for the endgame. This move fortifies his position and provides extra defense to the e7 and f7 squares, while also planning to support his pieces for the ensuing struggles. 30. Fischer sacrifices his bishop with b takes f7 check, creating significant tactical pressure by forcing Spassky's king to respond to the check. This sacrifice can lead to a powerful attack against Spassky's position, drawing the rook out and increasing the vulnerability of his king. Spassky responds with r takes f7, capturing the bishop. While this move regains material, it exposes the f7 square further and puts Spassky under increased pressure from Fischer's remaining pieces, particularly the queen and active rooks. 31. Fischer plays q takes f7 check, capturing the f7 pawn and delivering a check, forcing Spassky to respond. Spassky replies with q takes f7, recapturing the queen. This trade of queens often favors Fischer, as it simplifies the position while maintaining the initiative and keeping the pressure on Spassky. 32. Fischer plays n takes f7, capturing the rook on f7 with his knight, which leaves Spassky with an exposed king and a vulnerable position. Spassky plays b takes e4, capturing the knight. However, this allows Fischer to gain more activity for his pieces and puts extra pressure on black's position. 33. Fischer captures with r takes e4, taking the bishop on e4. This strengthens his control over the center and prepares for future direct threats. Spassky responds with k takes f7, recapturing the rook. This brings the king into a more active position but also exposes it to potential attacks from Fischer's remaining pieces. 34. Fischer plays rd7, delivering a check that forces Spassky's king to move. Spassky moves kf6 to sidestep the check. While it keeps the king active, it places it in a slightly more vulnerable position. 35. Fischer plays rb7, positioning the rook to target the b4 pawn and increase pressure along the 7th rank. Spassky responds with ra1, checking Fischer's king. This move looks to create counterplay, but Fischer's king is safe enough to handle checks. 36. Fischer moves to kh2, stepping aside from the check and keeping his king safe from further checks while also potentially supporting an attack. Spassky plays bd6, delivering another check with the bishop while looking to complicate Fischer's response. 37. Fischer plays g3 to block the check and make breathing room for his king. This pawn move also prepares for advancing the pawn structure on the king's side. Spassky responds with b4, advancing the pawn to create counterplay on the queen side and potentially distracting Fischer from his plans. 38. Fischer continues with kg2, bringing his king into a more central and safer position while maintaining pawn structure integrity. Spassky plays h5, attempting to create threats on the king side and possibly preparing for a pawn advance to destabilize Fischer's position. 39. Fischer moves rb6, targeting the b4 pawn and applying pressure on the 7th rank, setting up for potential exchanges that could benefit him. Spassky plays rd1, moving the rook back to challenge Fischer's positional pressure and centralizing it for future support. 40. Fischer plays kf3, activating his king for the endgame and preparing for a potential rook and pawn play against Spassky. Spassky responds with kf7, keeping his king close to the action but also remaining slightly exposed due to the centralization of Fischer's forces. 41. Fischer moves to k2, further centralizing his king and preparing to assist in pawn advancements or attacks. Spassky plays rd5, sliding the rook onto the 5th rank to contest the center and maintain pressure. 42. Fischer plays f4, pushing the f-pawn to support future pawn advances and to solidify his hold on the center. Spassky responds with g6, aiming to create a pawn structure that can hold off Fischer's advances while enabling future counterattacks. 43. Fischer plays g4, advancing the pawn to create threats and potentially open lines against Spassky's position. Spassky responds with h takes g4, capturing the g4 pawn, which opens the position even more and invites further exchanges. 44. Fischer captures back with h takes g4, regaining material while maintaining the pressure on Spassky with active pieces. Spassky plays g5, looking to destabilize Fischer's position and enable his pieces to participate actively in the potential endgame. 45. Fischer plays f5, pushing the pawn to create a powerful threat against the e6 square and solidifying his stronghold on the board. Spassky moves b5, using the bishop to challenge Fischer's central pawn and prepare for potential defensive maneuvers. 46. Fischer plays rb5, activating the rook on the 5th rank and targeting the weak pawns on the queen side while keeping pressure on black's position. Spassky responds with kf6, moving his king closer to support his pieces and offering some degree of centralization. However, Spassky's king remains vulnerable to attacks. 47. Fischer captures with r takes b4, taking the b4 pawn and further solidifying his position while allowing his pieces more mobility. Spassky plays bd4, attempting to develop his pieces actively and directly challenge Fischer's rook, while also looking to centralize his king. 48. Fischer plays rb6, checking Spassky's king and forcing it to move. This rook check keeps Spassky under constant pressure. Spassky responds with k5, moving his king to safety while trying to maintain some central control. 49. Fischer plays kf3, bringing the king closer to the action, reinforcing his pieces, and preparing for a possible endgame maneuver. Spassky responds with rd8, centralizing the rook and potentially preparing to contest the d-file. However, it's also a defensive move to protect his position. 50. Fischer plays rb8, doubling down on the b-file to apply pressure to Spassky's position and pin down his pawns. Spassky plays rd7, looking to activate his rook defensively, but it also puts him in a more passive state. 51. Fischer moves r4 b7, positioning his rook on b7 to reinforce control. This move further enhances his dominance and keeps Spassky's pieces tangled. Spassky responds with rd6, bringing the rook back to defend and counter Fischer's attacks. 52. Fischer plays rb6, reinforcing pressure against the d-file and limiting Spassky's options. This move keeps the offensive energy going. Spassky moves his rook back to rd7, again attempting to reinforce his position, but it's becoming increasingly difficult to find active play. 53. Fischer swings the rook to rg6, bringing it into an attacking position against the king's side, preparing to exploit weaknesses in Spassky's structure. Spassky plays kd5, centralizing his king. However, this exposes him further, as Fischer has the initiative. 54. Fischer captures with r takes g5, taking a pawn and creating tangible threats against Spassky's position. This captures key material and highlights Fischer's overwhelming position. Spassky plays b5, repositioning the bishop to threaten Fischer's rook, but it doesn't alleviate the pressure. 55. Fischer pushes f6, advancing the pawn and creating a powerful pass pawn while distracting Spassky from his plans. This move amplifies Fischer's attacking chances significantly. Spassky responds with kd4, moving his king to contest the center in a desperate act to fend off Fischer's advance. 56. rb1. Fischer concludes with rb1, attacking the b7 pawn and taking a decisive stand against Spassky's defense. This pressure leaves Spassky without adequate responses to prevent Fischer's impending victory. Spassky resigns with recognizing that Fischer's position is overwhelming, with no feasible defense remaining. And there you have it. We've explored the intricacies of the Ruy Lopez opening, as showcased in the legendary matches between Bobby Fischer and Boris Spassky. Understanding these foundational moves not only helps you build a solid opening repertoire but also enhances your overall strategic thinking in chess. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more chess content. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What are your favorite openings or strategies? Remember, every great player starts with the basics, and with practice and dedication, you can elevate your game. Until next time, keep playing, keep learning, and may your next match be your best one yet.